I'm on my own, broken alone. I feel the rain crashing.
What's up guys, I'm Hendo and today I'm showing you how to make Cable's arm.
But you don't care, you're unaware.
First, I'm drafting out my plans. This is going to be a foam base with hosing for the cable details and a big magnet for attachment. You can find all my materials listed in the comments. As always, the first thing I'm going to do is make my pattern. Cable's cyber arm is on his left, so I'm going to use plastic wrap and duct tape in order to make an exact pattern. It helps if you wrap your arm extra so that the thickness is about the same as your foam. That way you don't end up with a little gap when you transfer your pattern over to foam. You're gonna be sweaty, but it's gonna be worth it. When I made this, there was only one trailer with cable and only a couple reference photos, so the outer part of the arm may not be super accurate. So now I'm cutting my pattern off, taping it together, cleaning up the edges, and trying it on again. And do the same thing for your upper arm. It's gonna tuck under my t-shirt, but I'm still patterning it all the way up to the shoulder. Now I'm transferring my pattern to foam. I'm using quick dry super glue and dishwasher hosing. I've already mapped out where I want my tubes to go, so I'm just cutting them in half and gluing them on. Once the glue is a little bit dry, I can go ahead and seal the edges more with extra super glue. For tapered ends, I just cut the tube a little bit thinner or at an angle.
My darling dear, you're never here. When I'm in pain, you hide and disappear. Like shadows in the atmosphere, charting the stratosphere. I prayed for you and kept you near.
The forearm has a metal piece that covers the cable, so I'm actually going to cut these into fourths so that it's a little bit thinner and cuts down some of the bulk. You can also see that I'm adding some thinner plastic tubing just to add some variety and fill in some of the smaller gaps. Cable can never have too many cables. I'm only going to glue the top third of the forearm together. The bottom part is actually going to attach with magnets. This way I get a super tight fit, but I can still get my hand through. I'm also going to hold the top and bottom arm pieces together with one set of magnets on the outer side. This super big magnet is going to be held on with masking tape and super glued in so that it definitely doesn't rip apart my armor. All the magnets I'm using are N52 rare earth magnets. You can find a link to where I get my magnets in the comments. Now you can carve in some extra details. I'm also using the end of my Dremel bit to carve in some little bolt detailing. I've glued all of my little magnets into the forearm and added little foam circles to make sure it kind of looks like a bolt detail. The magnets are also extra sealed in with tape to make sure that they don't rip through the foam. I sealed the entire arm in Plasti-Dip and primed it with black. So far so good, it fits and works really well, and the magnets are holding strong. I made a long black sleeve to go under the armor. I'm going to paint it to fill in some of the gaps, and I'm actually going to paint my hand. I decided it would be easier to just paint on metal fingertips instead of making individual foam finger pieces this time. In the movie, Cable's arm is a green sleeve, and we're not really that fancy, so we're going to make it work with paint. It took about 5 layers of silver acrylic paint to make it look nice and armory. It's also best to paint it while wearing it so that the fabric is already stretched out and you won't have as much cracking. Now I'm cleaning up the separations with some black paint and adding some details. A little bit of copper will also make it look rusty. And some white highlights will add some depth. I'm also going to paint my elbow since there's a gap there in my armor. This doesn't have to be too detailed or fancy. Most people aren't really even going to notice. It's just going to help avoid big dark gaps. I'm painting it with the exact same colors that I use for my armor, and the cables are more or less going to line up with the ones on my arm.
I gave you everything, held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me, but you don't care, you're unaware. Keep moving like the scars aren't.
Highlights and shading will go a long way to add a little bit of realism. Next, I'm painting the fingerless gloves. I could do these details out of foam too, but I really wanted it to flex with my hand a little bit better, and I think the paint is good enough. The arm cables are a mix of silver, copper, and gold. I'm brushing lightly over the ridges and avoiding filling the gaps with paint. The gaps I want to stay nice and black so that the corrugation details stay strong.
Like shadows in the atmosphere, charting the stratosphere. I prayed for you and kept you near in hopes you'd chase away my fears. I'm on my own.
Now the plate on top gets a dark silver color.
And now I'm chasing nightmares. I used to run with you through the great big leaves, laugh at you when you laugh at me. Hope for us because I believe the home was just you and me.
And the outer plate is bright silver.
That's why I give you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world.
Now I'm adding highlights to some of the edges with bright silver and white. And it's basically the same process for the upper arm. I'm also painting little cables into the sides around the magnet for where it overlaps. This is also kind of going to serve as a good transition between the super 3D arm cables and the really flat painted on sleeve cables. Say cable again. Cables. Finally, I'm adding a little bit of black to the details and adding some shading and weathering. Now it's all done. Time to punch Deadpool in the face or mercilessly hunt down a kid. Whatever it is that Cable's doing in this new movie. Yeah. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you guys want to see me make next. And until next time, I'm Hendo. Thanks for crafting with me.
You were the one for me. That's why I give you every